Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Let's Get Deep Bible Study. Tonight, we're going to continue our study of Exodus 20. Last week, we talked about all of who Yah is. We talked about how he delivers us out of our bondage, not just a physical Egypt or a physical America or a spiritual bondage, but even currently right now as he is bringing us out of our dysfunction and not making for ourselves any images and how we're made in his image. And so we don't need to create or curate anything else because we are supposed to represent him. And taking his name is vain is not just saying, oh my God, like maybe we were taught growing up, but really it's doing a disservice to his character. It's walking in hypocrisy while saying you serve the Most High, but your actions or your conversations or how you treat yourself or how you treat other people um, make Yah look like a liar. And so we're going to continue in that vein tonight as we continue to go through Yah's do's, his don'ts, his set apartness, and his holiness. And so as we continue through Exodus, starting at chapter 20, verse 8, we're going to continue in this vein of that covenant faithfulness is holistic. Like being faithful to Yah's covenant is holistic and it instills generational obedience. His commandments guard our hearts and communities from corruption. And so, again, like we said last week, understanding his law, statutes, and commandments from the understanding of a husband speaking to his wife. And all of these things are put in place to protect ourselves and to protect other people, but also to start walking in the holiness that Yah is. All right. Verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yahuwah your Elohim. On it you shall not do any work. You or your sons or your daughters or your male servants or your female servants or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. So see here, we're already talking about natural branches and those who are even just passerbyers. Like everyone has to submit to the order of rest and keeping the Sabbath day holy, even if someone is not planning on joining the nation of Israel. Even if someone is just literally, you know, chilling in your gates, like, oh, they were on a road travel and they're gonna think they're gonna do some work today. Actually, the whole town shuts down. I don't know if you guys heard in a lot of Spain, um, countries in Spain, I believe, they have something called a siesta. In the middle of the day, everything shuts down, and that's just for them to like rest. You know, like there's you can't go shopping. You're not gonna. Everyone just takes a nap. I think it's maybe like a 2 or 3 hour window, but the whole area shuts down. And so I wanted like to give us a picture of like what that would look like coming to a holy nation that is Israel, and everybody just shuts things down. Um, And so the word remember is to be mindful, is to keep record, to make a memorial. And so we also know that holy, we talk about being holy a lot, is to keep oneself set apart, to be pure, to be clean, to be holy, to be consecrated. The Sabbath is the mark of set apartness. It is a sanctified boundary, a mark of covenant identity between Yahuwah and his people. This is the only commandment where Yah starts it with remember because he knew that we would be tempted to forget or to set it aside for business, convenience, or cultural pressures. Okay. Um, and that's really, again, Yah is meeting Israel where they are, we talked about, right? They have a trauma bound mindset currently. They just got out of Egypt. They just saw these plagues. They saw the amazing things that Yah did for them, but there is still a deconstructing process and learning how to love Yah and trust Him in rest is something that they have not seen. They don't know rest. All they know is being taken advantage of, working, hustling, you know, working to get to the next meal, all these types of things. So when he's like, don't work, not you, not your servant. This is not just for people who are in the higher echelons of society. This is literally for everybody. It's not like, so again, in America, the history of America, and we were slaves. The slave masters might arrest it on Sundays, but or Shabbat, because Sunday, Sabbath, all that kind of stuff has been switched around. But it's like, okay, the house and the owners are chilling and the masters are chilling, but your slaves are still outside working grinding, making you money, that's still doing it a service. Even in the concept of like, if the Sabbath was Sunday, like in a hypothetical, we still are not, when we were in the concept of Christianity, we still weren't honoring the Sabbath properly, even if we believed that Sunday was the new Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So we would like, oh, go to church, into a sermon, but still come back home, go to the grocery store, go shopping, put on the football game. Like there was no reverence beside maybe those 2 or 3 or 5, depending on which denomination you're in. For those 2 to 5 hours, that was it. But the rest of your day went on as normal.
You're going out to eat on the
Yeah,
Sabbath after
you know,
church, going to Waffle House.
going to
Like,
eat, going to a day party, going to the bar, like as long as you got your word in and your praise and worship for an hour or two, then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go back and enter into the world. There's the
mm,
concept of being set apart. And I'm not saying that for everybody, but that's the consensus. If again, I'm speaking from someone who came out of the Christian construct. I don't know how that pertains to those who maybe were raised Muslim, or were raised in a different faith that has certain like holy or set apart days. I do know specifically like for Ramadan, those are supposed to be holy days, but even the mindset and the heart posture of that is like you're fasting, but then like the whole time you're fasting, you're worried about food. You're worried about as soon as the sun hits a certain, I'm going in here, I'm spending this money. It was like it there wasn't like a reverence of understanding why you're
mm,
fasting or why you're keeping something holy. You were just doing the motions of doing it because of, tradition. um
mm,
and I think for us now is literally fighting against the um the cultural pressures, and still healing from this concept of, if y'all's telling me not to work today, I got to set aside this day, like in thinking like, okay, will this hinder my business? Will this hinder, the convenience of like people wanting me to be available? This
mm,
is a date, a standing date weekly that you and your spouse have, that you and your covenant Elohim have.
mm,
Because again, we're going to continue reading later, but it talks about this is a sign that I'm yours and you're mine.
mm,
It's repeated in Leviticus, 6 days you shall work, seventh is the Sabbath day, a holy convocation, do no work. Um, and the Sabbath day in all of your dwelling places. And obviously in Hebrews 4 says, so there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of Elohim. Even Yahushua's disciples rested according to the commandment, showing its unbroken continuality. Luke 23:56. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath, they rested according to the commandment.
mm,
And so we mentioned this in Genesis. We mentioned this when we did our Genesis 2 study, because we are like, let's go back to the establishment of Sabbath. Because we kind of talked about this early on, and we were talking about the manna and the quail. It was directly connected to trusting God's provision. So the word the seventh day, or the Sabbath, literally means to swear or to make an oath. So one, they're already making a covenant. They already said, yes, we will serve Yah and do all that he says. But within saying yes, there's another doubling down on the oath, in the promise that you just said you're going to do, is directly connected to keeping the Sabbath. You say you're in covenant, but you break the Sabbath, means like you're quite literally, you said you took an oath to serve him, but you don't actually honor the promise, which is the seventh day.
mm.
Exodus 31, right, still in Exodus 20, but in Exodus 31, he's going to say it again. Verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, continuation, that ye may know that I am Yahuwah that does sanctify you. The Sabbath day, the covenant, the oath, the promise is all connected to sanctification, consecration, set apartness.
Mm-hmm.
The establishment in Genesis 2, verse 3. And Elohim blessed the Sabbath day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his works which Elohim created and made. Um, so before we go to the next commandment, any questions, commentary regarding the Sabbath, or even like talking about like how you're operating in your and understanding Sabbath and resting in Sabbath, and like how has that been hard for you, like trying to rest, and even the resting of like our minds and our conscious, and even like, okay, yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to rest, but my mind is still running. Like even that awareness that our minds are still struggling to rest, is a place where we allow Yah in. Don't allow that to discourage you from still keeping the Sabbath, even though you're working on how to truly rest in this promise of restoration.
I So for those who don't know, real quick, I do have a son. From before I was in truth, like when I was like deep in witchcraft and all the things. And the spell that I was doing, quote unquote, that burned my apartment down was actually a spell to get him back. So long story short, it's been a long, difficult road, but he's actually coming over to spend the night at my house for the first time because his grandma adopted him. So he's spending the night in my apartment. And obviously he's a 6-year-old kid. He likes cereal. And so I don't keep cereal at my house. I eat pretty, like clean and stuff, and I don't really eat cereal. So I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta go get him some cereal and milk. Like I told y'all, it was in office week. I was so tired. I did not want to go to Kroger. And I was like, I literally was like, oh, y'all will understand. I can just go in the morning with him. Like, this is a special occasion. Sharp rebuke. Like, girl, get up and go get that cereal before the sun go down. Like, and then I was thinking, I felt so bad. I'm like, Yah has given me everything. He's done everything for me. And I'm still, my flesh is trying to allow me to treat his Sabbath as something that is like optional. Like, it's not like this was an emergency. It's not like, I had time. I was just being lazy. So I repented. I went, got the cereal, and I felt obviously like Yah's rebuke is never, sometimes it is, but for the most part, it's always pretty gentle. And yeah, I was like, girl, he done gave you this opportunity for your son to come to your house, and like you have time to go get it. So it's still something that is just like trying to deconstruct my mind of like, oh, I have to do this before sundown. It's like, no, you get to do this before sundown. Like you get to. But I am a lot better. Obviously, the sun going down at 8:30 helps. But yeah, that literally today. That's so crazy. I didn't even realize that's the verse we were on. So praise y'all.
Hallelujah. I was literally because like cultural pressures, like we're constantly having to challenge those thoughts of like
Mm-hmm.
resting. He's like, and it's directly tied to discipline
Mm-hmm.
because you literally have 6 days. You know what I'm saying? He's like,
Facts.
6 days to gather and to get the things that you need. And I'm going to provide for you these 6 days. If you rest on the seventh day, I promise you there's provision here. If you be still, I promise you you're still going to be taken care of. I
Mm-hmm.
promise you if you don't work today, you're not going to lose out on anything. And it's just like, that is so like, again, trauma mindset, unhealed operating systems within us. And then y'all's just like, I just want to like hug you. For people who don't like being hugged, can you imagine like someone hugging you and like just continue to hug you and just love you? And you're uncomfortable in it until you just like breathe and like, okay, well, this is not bad. Okay, this is actually good. And there's actually science and stuff behind like the longer the hug, like the more like relaxed you are. And these kind of endorphins shoot off in your brain. But it's just like, y'all's like, I just want to give you a hug every week. And you're just like, no, I got stuff to do. Like, don't hug me too long. So like he's really trying to regulate our nervous system. And we're fighting against resting and allowing our nervous system to be regulated because we're so used to the rat race of America, of economy, of capitalism, of thinking, oh, if I don't put my hand to this today, then I'm not going to have provision. But that goes directly against what Yah said. He says, gather 6 days, on the seventh rest, don't do no work. Like this is my day. And it's directly connected to trust. If you haven't already, go back to our Genesis chapter 2 study because we go into very grave detail regarding the Sabbath, trusting, regulating our nervous system, like deconstructing from why do I feel like I have to do X, Y, and Z? Do I not trust his provision? All these things are connected to the Sabbath. And he's saying, I did all this in 6 days and I'm the most high and I'm resting. So if I can rest, you're not above me. So you can sit your butt down too. And enjoy this and enjoy it. Don't make it grievous. And that's another thing. A lot of people make the Sabbath so like this grievous thing. You're supposed to be excited to get to the Shabbat. Instead of being like, oh, tomorrow Shabbat, I'm gonna have to stay in the house and I'm gonna have to read my Bible and I'm gonna have to. It's just like, whoa. Let's do some heart reflection because why do I feel this way about the Sabbath? So, again, I always bring it down to a marriage covenant. It's like, your husband's really excited to like spend this retreat with you, like this 24-hour getaway. And the whole time that y'all are there, you're kind of just like, I can't wait to get back home. I can't wait to get back to the city. Like, I just can't wait to get back to my regular, hustle and bustle. Like, he's just like, dang, you ain't trying to like spend time with me. Like, that's weird. Like, that's so weird. Everything's taken care of. You don't have to worry. You could turn your brain off. That there's like this thing, like, I'm just a girl. Like, I don't think around my man. I don't think around my husband. Like, he just got it. Like, that's the type of energy we're supposed to have when it comes to Shabbat. Like, turn my brain off. I'm just chilling. I'm just here, like, reminiscing on how y'all has got me through this week.
Mm.
And how he's in that Sabbath day preparing and understanding that, like, we're not preparing on Sabbath, but like in your mind, you're doing this preparation of like, okay, Yah has got me through this week. When tomorrow hits and I have to work again, like he's gonna get me through the next one. Like he's gonna get me through this next one. There's nothing that he can't get me through. And so reflecting on that, and even when the enemy tries to bring in thoughts of like, we gotta worry about this, you gotta worry about that, you rebuke those thoughts and you put every thought that rises itself up against Yah under your foot. And you're just like, well, Yah got me to this week. He got me to this year. He got me through this month. He got me through last month. Like he got you through literally today. And so why would he not do it again? And so again, when I keep saying Shabbat is directly connected to trust, it is so connected to trust. And I'm excited to go through the rest of this. Like I said, they're always going to build on top of each other. So with that being said, the next commandment, oh wait, I want to read the chat. Yes, Ashley said absolutely been trying to get so much better at that. Yes, like that turning your mind off and really like actually resting and not just being still in your body, but in your mind and in your heart, you're still working, and again, that takes time, but that's why like practice makes perfect, quite literally. I look forward to Shabbat, like busting my tail all week, to get the appreciation of Sabbath day rest. There's so much rejuvenation that comes from the first day after a good rest. Yes. Hallelujah. Man. Okay. The next commandment is honor thy father and thy mother, that your days may be long on the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives thee. And so the first thing when I was reading this, and the first thing that popped to my mind was this proverb that says, it's kind of like the opposite of like, if you don't honor your father, and this is like Yah talking to, actually it's the David that wrote it. David was writing basically some wisdom about like a man who disregards his father's instructions, like his eyes should be plucked out by ravens. And I just, and it's just like this concept of like, honor your father and your mother that your days may be long on the earth. Honoring your father and your mother is directly connected to long days in the earth, just like honoring his commandments is connected to love, faithfulness, and mercy to 1,000 generations. Do you see like the parallel? Y'all's like, you honor me, you get long life. You obey me, you get these blessings. You disobey me, you get these curses. Honor your father and mother, you get long life on the earth. If you dishonor your father and mother, your days are cut short. Do you see how those literally are the same? Like it's literally a parallel. Yeah, like I'm the father. And then when you honor me, you get blessings. But if you dishonor your your earthly mother or your earthly father, there's this connection to your days being cut short. And so Yah honors the pattern that he's establishing, even in our interpersonal relationships with our parents that should have honor.
What does honor look like for people who have had not so great parents? Because I know a lot of people wonder that, and I used to myself because my mom, she struggled with drinking and stuff. That's why I try to pray for my family, because now my sister and brother kind of struggle with the same addiction issues. So growing up, she was really kind of abusive. So I understand the concept of honor, but for somebody who may be listening and that can like sting, like what does that honor look like?
Mine's too. Is that Natalie?
Yes. Hey,
Yeah,
girl.
mine's too. My mom had the same issues, beat on me, and was like an alcoholic. But I will tell you, forgiveness and mercy, because you know who you are and to whom you are, that you are not the earth's property, but that you're the Most High's property. You're Yah's property. And because you have that love and you've been made whole through him, you can make others whole. And if they reject that, then that's fine. But you'll have the mercy to be able to continue regardless of how they treat you, even now.
Yeah, praise Yah.
That's my suggestion. I'm not saying that's it, but that's how Yah is good, okay? my mother is still out of her mind and
Yeah.
does some nasty things to me when I see her, and I just be like, wow. Now it's like, wow, like really?
Yeah. And I will say my mom, she's gotten, my mom has actually apologized to me.
Leaving
So
my
that,
stuff.
huh?
I'm coming, man.
Oh, Ash, you're not on mute.
Oh,
But no, my mom's apologized to me, but like Aisha said, she will still, like, alcohol is, she'll still get in those moods. And my husband will hear her talk to me sometimes, and he'll be like, yo, your mom is like really mean to you. And it's just like, dang, maybe I've gotten numb to it over the years. But all that being said, I have forgiven her. I still speak with her. I still talk to her. I do my best to, follow that command of honoring her. But for somebody who's struggling, it's just like, how do you?
Des, you got your hand raised. Go ahead, sis.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, like, for those who may be struggling with relationships with their parents in any way, shape, or form, I've came to learn that compassion is needed. And I know that probably sounds like so hard, like, how can I have compassion for this person that treated me this way? But trying to, in a way where you start to put yourself in a place where you can understand why this person may be reacting the way they do towards you or treating you a certain way can kind of help you have that compassion so you can lead to that forgiveness and move forward. Because it's only going to hurt you holding on to that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
That's
support what Des
true.
just said also. That
Yeah.
was one thing. I'm 46 years old though, right?
Mm.
That was one of the things that had to happen in my life where I was like, I looked at what happened with my mom and I was like, she was 16 years old when she got pregnant with me.
Oh,
She
wow.
was a child, like, I mean, in my situation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just like what Dad said, just kind of the compassion and looking at it like, okay, look at them from a sister standpoint. Sometimes we are actually older or younger than the people that we're mentoring, right? And if you look at her like she's a kingdom sister, and not like your mother and that like she owes you anything, but like, hey, what do I have? What have y'all given me that's an overflow that I can pour into someone else? You know what I mean? And if it's your mother that he's telling you to do that with, he'll give you a specific assignment in that sense. But my mom is just like, you know, she, bless her heart. Let me just say that, right? Bless her heart, right?
Yeah.
In everything that she does. And it's up to me where like I could choose to like respond to some of the things that she does, or I can just say, you know what, y'all, like this is all yours. And if it's just your child, I need to continue to pray. I need to continue to intercede. And even if you don't feel like praying, just look for those places where you can have like, what happened to her in her life to where she ended up becoming this person or doing this thing. And it may not necessarily been directly to me, but this may be just something within her that, really needs some deep healing. And let's hope that she gets that healing before she leaves this earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a different level of compassion. It's like a sister compassion. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at someone else outside of yourself, not what you did to me, but look, you are a fellow sister, you're a child of the Most High, and you are still hurting.
Mm-hmm.
But re-
Go ahead, Ian. You had something to say?
yeah, I'm actually glad, Natalie, that you brought that up because I'm also, I mean, I already forgive my parents basically because my mother already left me when I was like 2 years old, I think, and she needs to like work abroad, to provide my needs, and also my father, they're not really together, so basically my father is like, they didn't end up with, which I think it's for the best because my dad is used to be like, have a lot of chicks, like, I mean, my grandmother, right, his mother is telling, so basically it's like there's a last, like, like struggle, like within the generations that I've observed that, they're struggling with like women, you know and it's actually really tough, but and then how to say that, like when I was like 18 years old, that's the time that I got to know my mother. And I don't know, it's just difficult at the very beginning, but at some point I think Yahuwah really used a persons for my mother to, for us to be together. But I was struggling for so long until I realized that it's actually a blessing because everything is like, Yahuwah is protecting me from all the trauma that's going to happen if ever, maybe, I don't know, right? Because sometimes it's easy to think that, what if my mother is like this? What if my father is like that? Like, we used to think this kind of thoughts in our mind that, we used to, like, we hope, but as we know that, Yahuwah knows everything. So it's just like, really, I think that's also the part of our waking up in this generations, like all of us right now here in this, in this Bible study, because I think there's always a purpose, like, and you can see, and we can see why are they like that, because there's just really strong bondage. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you, Natalie, or all of us are born in this world, because we are called to cut the generational choices and curses in our life. And that is the things that we have to put trust, really, that, like, yeah, it's really, as Samaria said, like, it's really about the trust. And yeah, I just want to encourage you also, like, all of you guys, I mean, especially to those who are struggling with family, because I myself, I really struggle with that. And I'm actually was the basically my I was born because of fornication, so I could really see a lot of, things in my family. But at the end of the day, it's really the bondage. That's why we are called to, how to say that, to build the bridge, to be walk in the light. And I think this is just, everything is just a process. And I think this is also the way that probably would help us to, with our heart and our, what area in our life that, we need to work out on. So yeah, it's actually a blessing, everything. That's why really counting trials as joy, because
Yeah.
it's really, really the trials that will refine us and who will shape us, that, Yahuwah called us to be. So yeah, all of this right now, I just realized that it's actually a blessing, and everything that is happening, why I don't have father, I don't have, I wish to have complete family, but it's absolutely Yahuwah's ways are really then beyond we can ever thought or think. So yeah.
Yeah.
So Jenny was talking about how, like, it's for our heart posture, it's for our elevation, right? And like the whole concept of honor is heavy. Like it's like honoring your mother and father. The word honor also shows like the word burden. It says abusive here too, but I don't like that like definition of it. But I would just say sometimes honoring your parents can feel like a burden, and I'm just like meeting us where we are, where if we have those abusive situations, and when my dad assaulted me for some years, I felt like he didn't deserve honor, and Yah's really been, Yah has definitely corrected that, to even if I haven't seen him like read his word or change in certain like characteristic traits or conversations. It's just that like, well, he still deserves honor because Yah said so, right? And again, I like that this commandment comes later because again, last week we talked about how um to not take his name in vain, to not take his image in vain, to not have anything before him. And so we talked about dealing with family and friends and how some of us confess that like I have put my kids before Yah, I have put my parents before Yah. And when we do that, it kind of disrupts how we're able to honor our mother and father in a way that Yah is pleased. And so having Yah at the forefront, or having Yah be the only thing that we bow down to, if he's saying honor your parents, then we do it because we serve Yah. And that's really it. And in the midst of that, we get a healing. Like as everyone has literally been a testament and a witness to that, honoring parents that have hurt you or have not actually operated as a mother or a father in the way that mothers and fathers should operate, and you still honor them, there is a level of healing that is literally being sown in your heart as you operate in honor. It's literally like turning the other cheek when someone slaps you. It's literally like heaping coals upon someone's head. I think there's a proverb that talks about like, if you repay, like if you repay your enemies for good for the evil that they've done to you, you're literally heaping coals, right? Obviously, our intention is not to heap coals on our parents, but it's just like at the end of the day, me honoring Yah in doing right by you, even if you don't deserve it, in the sense of like, weighing scales and balances. Yah is looking at my heart posture in this, and prayerfully, me operating in love and faithfulness and honor to you will allow you to see that Yah has done a change in me in this seed that you brought forth. So it's possible in you because it was in you and I came forth out of you, quite literally. So it's like this, you're seeing your child, you're seeing your daughter or your son operate in holiness when they didn't even get a representation of what holy was from your mom or your dad. Do you know like that? That is literally a witness and a testimony of the glory of Yah, of his holiness. That through you, a child that came through abuse, and being mistreated, that literally righteousness could come forth from that environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
am definitely that child.
Mm-hmm.
That you spoke to the little girl in me that has battled with that, because it makes you feel like, wait 1 second, let me get my children together really quickly because I'm in the car. Thank you very much. I need y'all to be quiet. It feels like you're adopted. It's like a, well, where did I come from? This is before I knew any better, you know? And so I battled with that for a long time because I was like, well, I don't act like you, and I don't act like you. I don't think like you, and I don't treat people like you do. I don't talk to people the way you do. Well, where does this come from? Who showed me this? Like, who taught me this? And that's when I realized, like, that was the Most High, like, literally.
Yeah. Sometimes you can feel like for a long, I still struggle with this, you know, like late at night when the enemy be trying to talk to me. I'm like, yeah, why? Like, you knew who my parents would be, you knew who my family would be. Why did you allow this to happen? And I know, like, the biblical answer, like Yin said, generational curses, bondage, like all the things, but like it can still like hurt sometimes, you know? But yeah. A lot of times I think of that verse in Esther, you were born for such a time as this. So
Yes, that's it right there.
I don't know if you guys heard about the like the saying, like I'm not sure which book was that, but I think that was A Purpose Driven Life. Like, you know, we came from the right family. Like, there's reasons why they are our parents, I think. But yeah, it's just really it's we cannot really grasp why things happen like that, because yeah, it's really not easy, especially those people that who are really on a trauma, right? And I could see it with my mother, right? So yeah, so but at the end of the day, I feel like oh, it's just really like praying really helps.
Yeah, praying, trusting him, and like leaving it, leaving it at his feet, quite literally. Because again, Yah sees it all. He knows what happened to you. He knows your heartbreak. And the fact that you are literally entrusting the heartbreak into his hands, you know that restoration is there. Even if it doesn't look like it with the naked eye, you're still looking at your family, you're still looking at, where you come from, your family line, like, dang, y'all, there's just so much like destruction and dysfunction here. But yeah, because wow, you brought me out of that. Like, in your honor of your parents and you honoring Yah, because again, dishonor carries judgment. It says he who curses his mother and his father. So cursing is speaking ill will, or wishing like harm to them, or unfavorable circumstances around your family because of how they treated you. Like, you are literally basically like you're hurting yourself, right?
yeah.
And I think the beauty of honoring your parents is just like when they get old and they need you, because you honor Yah, you will be able to be there for them despite X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Like, that's a level, that's literally Yahusha level of, that is Yah-centered Ahava. Because your devotion is not for them per se, but it's because you love Yah so much, you can see past them as your mother and father, like Aisha was saying, like, and you're looking at them like, this is just another brother or sister who has lost their way and they are struggling. Like, you begin to see spiritually, you begin to look at them spiritually, and not so much as if this is my blood mother and father and they should do X, Y, and Z. You look at them like, wow, this is a child of Yah that has gone through so much that they don't even recognize love of the father. They don't recognize that he is healing, that if they would just submit themselves to Yah, that he would literally heal all the things that I don't know about that has happened to them, that has caused them to treat me a certain way. Like there's literally, it's like you take a step back from being a child and you're just like, huh, you know, like, wow. Go ahead, Aisha.
It's stuck in my mouth too, y'all. But I wanted to tell y'all this. I remember one time I was like, feeling like I was beat up and everything. And I had that word from He said, my grace is sufficient, right? It was like the same word where Paul was like, why has this happened to me? And why did I go through this? I can't explain exactly what part of the scripture it is, but God says, he gives us what we can actually take. And I would just say also something very funny, because one time when I had gotten jumped on by my mom, right? I was like 13, she like beat me up and my nose was bleeding and I was crying my eyes out. And I told my grandma, I was like, but the Bible says we're supposed to honor our parents. And so she was beating up on me. My grandma was like, the Bible also says parents don't provoke your children. And so the next time she came at me when I was 16, I almost got with her. My sister had to hold me back, though. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. But y'all almost really got with her, because I remember what my grandma said. My grandma had passed away by that time. Like my grandma said, provoke me, But anyway, real talk, I wanted to say, y'all were saying in regards to the generational curses, and we trying to understand why we're born into families like this and why we go through this. Don't forget about the promises of those that love him. Because he said he will bless up into thousands of generations for those that love him. And there was somebody in your DNA that was praying for you before you even got here. You belong to somebody before your mother. That grandmother, that great-grandmother, that great-great-grandmother, somebody loved you way before your mother came along. And just be reminded of Yah's promises. So where there's generational curses, and that is true, he said, I will curse up to the third and fourth generation for those that hate me, but for those that love me, thousands. Can you imagine thousands of grandmothers away from here that was praying for you? So just remember how good his God is. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it, because somebody, and I'm gonna tell you, for my baby, and I don't care if it's thousands of generations from now, those are my children. You understand? And I think any mother and any child would understand what that feels like when you know a true mother's love, or you're a mother that truly loves her child. That is great and passionate, and something that you can never, ever even try to compare or fathom, like that amount of love. But that's what Yah is. So that's it.
I want to make sure I'm not saying your name wrong, sis, but Sanaya, she put Isaiah 49, 15 and 16. Like, would a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son of her womb? Though they forget, I never forget you. See, I have inscribed you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are always before me. Now I just like, yeah, that's it right there. That sums up everything we've been saying. Like, it may feel like your parents have forgotten you, or that, your parents threw you away, and they may have in the physical, but Yah's like, but you're mine. Like, I've never forgotten you. So I just love that. Thank you, sis, for sharing that scripture. All right. Exodus 20:13. Thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not murder. I don't know how it is in everyone's translations, but this word murder, it means murder, to slay, but it also said to premeditate it, accidental, avenger, to assassinate. So it's not just the fact that you murdered someone. It could have been an accident, that's still murder, because sometimes accidental deaths come from a lack of self-control, like fighting, like this whole eye for an eye. There's a scripture later on, I think it's in Exodus 21, where it talks about if two people are fighting and somebody, and a woman gets hit and she's pregnant and the baby dies, like that person is charged with murder. But it's just like, how do we even get to this point that we're fighting so aggressively that we are literally accidentally killing people? And so this idea of premeditation, I really want us to focus on that, because obviously we know that obviously don't kill, don't murder, don't take vengeance into your own hands, don't premeditate how you're going to lay a trap for someone so you could take their life. this is not in the confines of war, are judicial execution. So a righteous killing that happens because someone murdered, and now according to the commandments, Yah was like, okay, that person has to be like cut off from Israel. We're not in that era anymore. However, this like Yah is going to avenge X, Y, and Z and everything in between. Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to actually bring up one scripture where Yah even goes as far as to say that if someone tries to break in your home and you kill them accidentally, then you're not guilty of bloodshed. But if after the robbery you go looking for them again, then you are guilty of bloodshed. So he literally only really gives one chance, like one way that you could defend yourself. And if you accidentally murder, then you're not guilty. But even if you try to go get revenge, you're considered guilty.
Right. And even further, that chapter you're talking about, it also says like if someone breaks into your house in daylight and you kill them, you're guilty. Because it's like you didn't have to kill them, because like you have a clear vision, you can see. If it's at nighttime and it happens and you kill them, you're good. Because like it's in the dark at night, like I don't know what your intentions are. Maybe you was robbing me and you planned on killing me, vice versa. But if it's broad daylight, I'm gonna have to pull that up later. I'm gonna add it to the notes. But like, yes, like Yah puts provisions in details. Like he is not Elohim that misses out on details. Thank you, sis, for bringing that up. Yah is very, very clear when he's talking about certain situations and instances. He's like, not killing in war or judicial execution. This is about unlawful shedding of what? Innocent blood. So it goes back to Ashley's conversation about someone breaking in your house at night and you kill them. That person was not innocent. You know, they had ill intent for your house and for your home. But again, whether it was premeditated, accidental, through negligence, or in vengeance, life is sacred because humanity bears the image of Elohim. We talked about this last week. You are made in the image of Yah. Do not take his name in vain. Do not take his image, his reputation. Do not take any of that in vain, because you represent the Father. So you killing another person that's in his image is very it's a grave. It's a grave image. So to take it unlawfully is to attack the very image of Yahuwah himself. And obviously, Yahusha deepens his command. He said, you have heard, you shall not murder, but I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of judgment. Murder begins in the heart. Hatred, rage, bitterness are all seeds that, if left unchecked, begets violence. So again, you may not be murdering anybody, but the way that you speak, your hatred for certain people, your bitterness, your rage, you are literally sowing seeds of violence within the community and against yourself.
And it makes me think of like how many people, like this is so, it's profound to me because like obviously we have the laws of the land now. How many people will go around murdering if obviously you couldn't get a life sentence for it if they couldn't figure you out? So I feel like when Yahusha deepened that command, it's just like it's so much more prevalent today because again, a lot of people don't murder. Like you make somebody mad, no, they're not gonna likely kill you because they know what comes with that. But like how many people are like plotting or have that rage for you in their heart, which is just as bad. So yeah.
I just want to add something. Okay. I think that is the how to say that, like in the Torah, right? Like this all commandments that Yahuwah gave to the Yasharal. And I think most importantly is, yes, I mean, I don't know, it's just been heavy with me lately too with this, that as people, or the true people are awakening, and those people who have eyes and ears to hear, is we go back to the Torah. However, I think the Exodus 20 that we're currently right now is actually connected to Matthew 5-6, because this is the commandment of Yahushua, that telling the people that I mean, the Torah is just a shadow of Yahushua. So Yahushua is really the key to really enter into the kingdom of heaven, because the Torah, it's like, I mean, I don't know, because we could be zealous about the Torah and forget about, like, the mercy and the compassion, and with like what Yahushua will do if you're in that positions. That's why it's really by faith that we can overcome things evil, because it is greater is he, the one who lives within us, than he of this world. So I think Torah is really, how to say that, like, details, but most, and that's also one of the reasons why the Pharisee, or mostly majority in this world is missing. It's because the hardest part is really the inwards, working inward, how to say that, sorry, like in the heart posture. And that is what trying Yahushua is, and it's just really sad that in Christianity or in the religion that they're trying to make it like light, but it's really difficult. And yeah, that's just what I add.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I was like, I have to put that's why I was like, definitely putting that scripture on there. Yahusha said, you have heard you shall not murder, but I say whoever is angry, right? And we talked about this last week, how like everything that Yahusha is saying was literally, quite literally already said in Torah, but because everyone was still looking at it from a very fleshly perspective, we were missing it. Because again, like I said in the first part, you should have no other gods before me. You should not take Yahuwah, your Elohim's name in vain. Vain means to do a disservice to his image, to his reputation. If you're going around hating and being hateful, you are already breaking that commandment. You are already taking his name in vain because of your hateful thoughts, because of you having hatred and bitterness towards your brother or your sister. And so you're already a false example or a false image of who Yah is. And so Yahushua was just like, let me just have to split it out plainly for you guys, because clearly you think just because you ain't killed nobody that you're good, but your heart, you desire for this person to be killed. Like you are hoping that something would happen to them so they don't have to be in the earth realm or in your sight anymore. And that's just as equal to you like picking up a stone and killing somebody. And this is, if any man hates his neighbor and lies in wait for him and rises up against him and smite him and that he die, he flees to one of these cities and so fetch him and deliver him to the hands of the avenger of blood, that they may die. Thine eye shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away the guilt of the innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with thee. So we have this whole thing in Deuteronomy 19 about this whole play-by-play that someone was just like, a man, again, what it start with, if a man hates his neighbor, whoa, and lie in wait for him, whoa. The hate part already was a deal breaker. You allowed your being angry with that person led to your sin. You meditating on that dislike literally led you to create a plan to go and kill this person. Then you had an escape route to try to evade justice. This isn't a people who literally heard the commandments on high, thundering down in a cloud. And we're just like, no, I'm going to honor the thought of my heart that hates my neighbor. And I could care less on how I represent Yah. That's, you have another God, you have another authority, you have another teaching, you have another influence in your life that's not Yah. Because we wouldn't even get to hating your neighbor and lying in wait if you actually had no other gods before Yah. If you actually didn't make for yourself an idol of yourself, like all of these commandments build on top of each other to protect us from ourselves and from, the animosity and the corruption that can breed forth when we're not surrendered vessels. And so even David, though he was forgiven, he bore the sword in his house for the sins of his premeditated murder and adultery. Like those are the two stains on David's account, because again, they were premeditated. It was something that set in his heart for time, that he created a plan. And I don't know if he hated Uriah, but his desire for something that was not his covetousness led him to murder. And we're going to get to that later. Again, obviously, thou shalt not commit adultery. Bringing up David and, his premeditation of murder and his adultery are the two things. Thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not commit adultery. Those are the two accounts that David broke in a premeditative, planned out, thoughtful way. And I think we kind of rushed past that because understanding the mind and the heart posture that David had to be in. He's this great man who's like a man after Yah's own heart, but something was going on in his life that he was so far from Yah. He was so far from Yah's word, his ways, his spirit, that he allowed these two sins, these thoughts to fester and create a whole ripple effect of sin. And when the first sin was about to be exposed, he doubled down so that he could evade the adultery that he had committed. So, and to cover up his adultery, he murdered. Like, I don't know. Like when I get to the Shamayim and the new heaven, new earth, and we all talking to each other, I'm like, what was going on? Like, what happened to you? Got so far from Yah that this transpired like that. Like, you know, because obviously he wasn't of a reprobate mind because he woke, like he came back. He wasn't like completely cut off from Yah. He heard like the word of the prophet, but there was a delusion going on with David in that season. It had to be for it to happen. Like, oh, boom, adultery. Oh, now I got to murder someone so they don't find out that I committed adultery. You know, and that's how like sin is so, it's a virus. And so adultery, to commit fornication, idolatrous worship, to be unfaithful. It applies to the turning aside of Israel. So adultery is the picture of turning away from Yah to go worship idols, or turning away from Yah to serve yourself, or turning away from Yah, turning away from your covenant to seek out the service, the provision of something else, of someone else, of another Elohim, of another covenant. This like, that's what fornication or adultery looks like in the heart. And so I said adultery is a virus. Once covenant fidelity is compromised, and infects all areas of your life. Yahusha teaches that adultery begins in the eyes and the heart. Whoever looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in his heart. To keep covenant with your spouse is to keep covenant with Yah, and vice versa. Keep saying covenant is marriage, marriage is covenant. This is the picture that Yah wanted us to really understand his commandments by. And when I say that adultery is a virus, literally, see point, example 1, David, he committed adultery, but that adultery, that covenant compromise, that lust, that fornication that he did, led him to, like, it infected everything else, quite literally generationally as well. Because it said the sword shall not depart from your house because of what you did with Bathsheba and then murdering Uriah. Like, yeah, we're gonna bring up David's lineage again later on, because I want us to see how this trickled down. This is just in David's line, right? We're not even talking about the whole of Israel, because the whole of Israel committed adultery, because we talked about last week, adultery and idolatry are quite literally the same. It's you leaving your covenant to go seek out another Elohim, another person that is outside of your covenant. Jeremiah 5:7, how shall I pardon thee of this? Thy children have forsaken me and sworn by them that are no gods. When I fed them to the full, they then committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses. And I was like, I sustained you guys. And when y'all got full and when y'all got all perfect and in shape and pretty and started looking like a nation, that's when y'all decided to leave me? Wow, that's crazy. Ezekiel 23:37. They that have committed adultery and blood is in their hands, and with their idols they have committed adultery. Again, with their idols they have committed adultery, and have also caused their sons whom they bear unto me to pass them through the fire to devour them. And so a lot of people just take this very literally. Oh, pass through the fire, they put them on an altar and they burnt them up. Yes, that could also be true, but also pass through the fire, like the fire of judgment. Because of your actions, you had children in my covenant, but then you joined your children to false practices, to lies, to other nations worshipped, and that's literally devouring the people. Because your children are now learning this, and it devours them. We talked about last week. The curses continue to infect your family until someone in the line repents. The blessings continue, and then boom, someone decides to put their child in or get their child used to the customs of paganism and idolatry and harlotry, and now it's a whole generation that's messed up because of your one decision to allow your child to attach themselves and be partakers in, you know, idolatrous worship practices or things that are outside of Yah's covenant. It makes me think about like how music is cultural and music literally moves the culture of people, but it's also a teacher. So think about the music now, not even just now, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was a lot of very sexual undertones, tones of like talking about like Egypt and you know, like even like Earth, Wind, and Fire. Just looking at their cover, like they was in some spiritual practices that were not of Yah. And there's an influence behind that thing that teaches generations that these certain behaviors, these certain thought processes are okay. And obviously, Yah says every generation is more wicked than the next. Like, oh, y'all kids is worse than y'all. And you look at us now, fast forward to 2025, the music, the way that the children act, the way that the parents act, you couldn't probably imagine half this stuff in the 50s and 60s, but like it was setting the groundwork had already been like there. And so now like the children are all devoured, you know, everyone's walking in error. Okay, Exodus 20 verse 15, thou shalt not steal. Now this became one of my favorite ones. Oh, and is adultery sex or even looking? Say that again, sis. Here's the saying, is adultery. So you saying is adultery just sex or even looking? Lusting with the eyes, because again, it starts with lusting, because we're gonna get to covetousness now. Like when you're turning aside from like your covenant vow and you're looking at something in a desiring way, it's like your heart, like you want that thing, but you haven't actually acted on it. And who should use that if someone looks, it's supposed to be a sense of like, dang, me even looking, I need to repent for that and ask Yah, where is this lust or this sinful desire like coming from? It's a pause for us to stop and be like, whoa, why am I even looking at that? Why am I even desiring or lusting after something that's not a part of my covenant vow? Sorry, is adultery like sex outside of covenant? Yes, that's part of it. And lusting is also considered adultery, because you don't just jump to like sex. Like there again, like Yahusha is allowing us to see how sin gives birth, or like how sin manifests itself. It's always going to start with a thought. And so it's just like, if you don't nip that thought, again, like I said, taking every thought captive. And Yahushua had to tell him, like, if you don't take this thought captive, it's going to breed in like adultery by you actually going out and having sex with someone. And on the other opposite end, it's just like, if you allow that thought to continue to stay in your mind, you are already unfaithful in your mind to your spouse, because you're constantly playing with this thought, fantasizing. Like you created a whole idol in a whole nother world in where you could commit adultery, but you won't do it in your body. But if you play in that thought long enough, it's going to manifest itself.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to like my husband, and I was like, I'm not gonna ask to come no more, because him and his brothers were having a Bible study. And it was a men's Bible study, and sometimes like I enjoy it, but this time they were like talking about men's stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna just leave that to y'all, because I really just wanted to get into the word. But anyway, they were talking about adultery, and I guess the older gentleman who kind of quote unquote runs it, he was like, adultery. The biblical definition of adultery is committing or it's being committed against another man, like if he sleeps with another man's wife, that's adultery. And I'm just like, okay, so where does that leave the woman? Like, why is adultery? And I didn't get a chance to look into it, but I'm like, why is adultery a crime against another man? Where does that leave the woman? That's what I wanted to ask. And it's just like, you still have fornication, you still have all the things, but I guess the intention would still be a heart problem. It's a lust problem. But like the definition of adultery, I heard, and I've seen that a couple other places as well, where
Yeah.
like it's like against another man, basically. A lot of, and a lot of our camp brothers and sisters may argue that as well. Like, oh, but I'm just like, it makes it makes it seem like Yah doesn't care about us as the women. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, where does that?
Yeah.
So how do we tie all
And
that
that's a good
together?
right there. Again, going back to taking Yah's name in vain, doing disservice to his image, representing falsehood. And when I was looking at the word adultery, when I pulled it up, it literally said the same thing you're saying, like just based off of what it says in the Blue Letter Bible lexicon, it says a man sleeping with another man's wife.
Right.
However, but fornication, that word is also interchangeably used for fornication. And so fornication is sex out of wedlock.
Right, out of covenant.
Out of covenant. Again, it's about covenant.
Right.
You're not in covenant with your with someone and you're having sex with them, you're breaking your covenant against Yah. We're supposed to be a holy set apart people, consecrated. How can you be holy and consecrated while fornicating, while making yourself unclean? Because they're talking about like, oh, if a man, has like, a bodily discharge, like he's unclean till the morning. So they don't even go together. Like having male discharge or women having discharge in the sense of like, because of a sexual act, you are unclean. So
that makes sense.
Again, also in Hosea, it talks about like, Yah says, I will not judge your daughters and your wives for their harlotry because y'all go out and y'all commit whoredom. So what are you saying about Yah when it comes to that? That's what I'm saying. We as women have to read the word for ourselves and know Yah's character. And know when men are still attached in a mind of lust because they don't want to literally repent of that lust. They want to make justifications for it. And that's the exact people that Yahushua was rebuking.
But yeah, I just
he didn't say nothing about Yahushua didn't say anything about, oh, if you look at another man. He said, if you look at a woman. If you look at a woman, not if you look at a wife, if you look at a woman. If you look at a woman who was made in the image of Yah and you want to have sex with her, you are committing adultery. And we understand that adultery and idolatry are one and the same, which I keep hammering down. You are unfaithful to your covenant to Yah. You have a lack of reverence and honor for Yah, which is why you try to manipulate why you can still operate in uncleanliness towards the community. Because you're not safe. And men are supposed to be safe, especially men of Yah. Men of Yah are supposed to uphold the authority, the integrity, and the heart posture of Yahuwah. They were the ones that Yah gave the dominion to first, and when we were here to help make sure they stay on track for that. We talked about last week. Women are influence can either derail or strengthen that man to walk in covenant faithfulness. And so when men are not operating covenant faithfulness, they will push out covenant unfaithfulness in other parts of their life.
Right. So when I heard that, it's just like, okay, cool. You're trying to give this basic biblical. And mind you, I like, his name is Ben. I like Ben. And obviously everybody's not going to have it right all the time. I like Ben. He has a lot of biblical wisdom, and he's who my husband goes to when he can't figure it out. But when I heard that and I didn't hear him like expound on it, like you're doing, like, okay, there's also fornication, or at the end of the day, you're breaking covenant. It made me feel like Like, I'm like, this is the narrative that you're perpetuating, that the world gets, that, oh, Yah hates women. Like, because you did not give any, like, room or explanation as to where, because you're just framing it as if Yah only cares about the man. Like, you just committed a crime against another man. You did not mention Yah's love for his daughters and how it's still a crime against his daughters as well because of your heart. So, but he also is the type of dude that believes that, you know, women shouldn't be teaching and stuff like that. So he could be, you know, he has his things, but yeah. So, but obviously when my husband came back and I asked him about it, you know, he expounded on it. But yeah, I just wanted to ask that for, you know, the people watching.
Yeah. I sent something to Latanya earlier this summer, and I had seen someone, I think we had talked about this too, Natalie, earlier this summer. And I was so angry. I was literally writing this whole Stripe review because literally someone posted a picture. It was a man in bed with a woman. It was the man. So the husband came home and saw his wife in bed. And there was another picture. It was a man and woman in bed, and the woman came home and saw her husband in bed. And they were like, one of these pictures is adultery and one is not. And I was like, y'all are deceivers from the pit of hell. Because both of people broke covenant. But if you're trying to teach, like this person seems to be trying to teach, that a man is not capable of committing adultery, that's basically what they're setting the precedent for.
Yeah.
Men cannot commit adultery. Do we know how dangerous and damaging that is?
Yeah. And even look at the story with Abraham and Sarah. Like, look at what that costed the two of them. Like, due to the decision making that they made with Hagar, like, come on now. That tell us right there. I don't need to know nothing else.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the both of them would have been like, you know something? I don't think it was a good idea that we did that. Yeah. If they could have gone back in time and made some changes, they'd be like, we're gonna go ahead and stick with the promise, okay, that he made with us. And we just gonna hold tight and be patient and wait for the son that the Most High was gonna give to us. That's it right there.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, like, obviously breach on a different subject because a lot of people have different views on, like, you know, polygamy and stuff like that. That's not what I was talking about. I just want to make that clear. That's not what I meant. But I just mean the adultery part of it. Like you said, setting the precedent that basically men cannot commit adultery, and, you know, only Yah cares about men and women are kind of just disregarded. And I'm like, that's not Yah's heart for us. So.
And I just want to add something also, because I've always seen this adultery thing like going on always in the internet, right? And it's just really sad too that every time there's an adultery going on, it's always been the woman that's always been attacked and not the man. And yeah, it's just like the hatred of, you know, like if there's something going on like adultery, like man is just like, you know, it's like it's mostly basically the fault of the woman. And yeah, it's just, I think it's just really spiritual warfare going on ever since from the beginning. And also Lemuel, I think he is the first, if I'm not mistaken, in the Old Testament, I think Genesis, like Lemuel is the first man who took many wives.
Laban, yeah, one of the seeds from seeds of Canaan.
Yeah.
One of the descendants of Canaan, the murderer. So yeah, you know, I mentioned that too.
Yeah, they try to just make it seem as if men are above, and I know we like throw the word misogyny around, but like some people do use the Torah to abuse women, and
exactly.
And I feel like that's why when Yahusha came, he spoke with women. He made it to where women discovered him and all the things, because I feel like our ancestors, you know, were using that to like tread on us. And that's like kind of the point that I was making.
Yeah.
It's like with Muslim too, right? Like the culture, and it's just like, you know, they're trying to, you know, like we can just have two wives. And I mean, it's just not really the character of Yahuwah, but it's just really, yeah, as what Samari said, the permissive will, and yeah, but it's just it's the man that's always under attack.
It's very much it grieves my heart too, because I see so much of it, and it's so destructive, which is the opposite of Yah's instructions. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this, Yah established this to guard our hearts and communities from corruption. But yet we have people teaching that it's okay and we can have corruption in our hearts, and we can be unfaithful to our covenant spouse on one end of the spectrum, but the other person is stoned for, but the other but the woman, that man's allowed to have lustful thoughts and be turned aside from his covenant to seek something else. We talked about what it looks like was it thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. The act of adultery is to literally turn aside from your covenant to seek service from another. And so with that understanding of what adultery is, it is a breach of trust, which we're going to get into. You shall not steal. And a lot of times implications, we just think of like, oh, stealing, but it's not just taking something away. It literally means to deceive, to secretly bring, to put aside, taken from the idea of aside, to break aside, to take from the side, to deceive anyone's heart. All this is just from thou shalt not steal. We've been thinking, oh, don't just take things that aren't yours. No, stealing is also deceiving someone's heart. Theft is ultimately a violation of trust. It is taking what Yahuwah has not given, and in doing so, distrusting his provision. I don't care about saying, but polygamy is not Yah's perfect will. That was never his standard. That was never his design for us. We have to stop lying on Yah, being false witnesses. Now, I don't care who I offend. Yah said, I made man and woman, them two, and they shall become one. When you start getting into the concept of you can have another wife, you have to be in your mind and your heart already looking outside of your covenant for something else. That's the definition of adultery. Turning aside from your covenant to seek something else. Because you don't think that your first wife is enough provision for you. You don't trust Yah's perfect order. You want to live in the permissible. Yah's called us to be perfect. So thou shalt not steal. That stealing can be a lie, it can be deception, it can be falsehood. To betray, self-deceived prophets, a lie, a false tongue. I want to give an example of this. In stealing, that doesn't seem like the regular stealing, like just taking things that aren't yours. Because in this, Jacob did take what was his, because he was under, a very deceptive uncle. So Genesis 31:20, and Jacob stole away unaware to Laban the Syrian, and told him not, that he fled. So that word is the same word for steal and thou shalt not steal, but it's this idea of being sneaky, of secretly trying to maneuver in a way. Also, 2 Samuel, Absalom, this is David's son. I told you I was going to bring back David again, because it said the sword shall not depart from your house. This concept of stealing, Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. David was king, all right? Absalom, had every right to be angry. His brother raped his sister. His dad didn't do nothing about it. Absalom killed that brother. He went away for some time. He waited till the anger kind of calmed down, and then he came back, and he started to gather the people of Israel. And they're like, wow, Absalom is handsome. We want him to lead us, basically trying to usurp the authority and the position that David had. So he stole the hearts of the men of Israel. I want us to think about in modern times when it comes to political affiliations and stuff. I'm not with that stuff. I'm not attached to Babylon in any way. But the whole concept of political campaigns is to literally try to steal the hearts of the people to gather enough votes or to gather favor so that you can be in a position of power. That's what Absalom was doing. He was stealing deceptiveness to get his way. So when I and so it's interesting that we're talking about, like we talked about earlier about the whole idolatry thing and what men believe in, what women have to just endure, but what does Yah say? And so stealing also goes into that too, also with false prophets. Thou shalt not steal. You stealing is deceiving people into believing a falsehood. And this goes into the next one. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Stealing and bearing false witness go hand in hand. All of this builds on top of each other. This is more than lying. Just like to steal is more than stealing. It's connected to deception. It's connected to lying. It is to actively destroy the reputation, time, and life of another. To bear false witness is to distort reality, to create a counterfeit perception of another person. We got people bearing false witness against Yah, but we also have people bearing false witness against their neighbor. Thou shalt not take Yahuwah the Elohim's name in vain. Don't take his reputation, his character in vain. Don't lie on him. Don't become a falsehood. Yah's reiterating this again. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Because when you bear false witness against your neighbor, it breaks down in the Hebrew letters of Shin, Kaf, Resh. When you are bearing a false witness, you are quite literally destroying the time of man. You have wasted someone's time. You have stolen, you have destroyed, you have consumed the quality of life for someone else. Do you see how this connects to adultery, fornication, lying, stealing, cheating? Bearing a false witness, lying on somebody, lying on Yah's word to manipulate people into a counterfeit perception, you have stolen the quality of that person's life. That's heavy. And I understand. So I'm going to take it personal for myself. When I realized that my pastors, my churches, my parents had all been feeding into this deception about who the Most High was, who Yahusha was, and I found out, I was angry, rightfully so, because I was literally, they had bore a false witness of Yah. I felt like I had wasted so much time walking in error because no one was teaching Yah correctly. There was no witness saying, return to the covenant. This is Yah. This is good. People said this was bad. People said this was a curse. I was angry. Y'all bore false witness. Y'all taught lies. Back to thou shalt not steal. Falsehood, self-deceived prophets. In Jeremiah 23:21, Yah saying, I have not sent these people, these prophets, these pastors, insert whoever, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to what? Hear my words, then they should have turned from their evil ways and from their evil doings. A false witness, bearing a false witness is already, like we covered that with taking Yah's name in vain. That's bearing a false. We talked about we are his witnesses. We said that last week. We are Yah's witnesses. We're supposed to be his representation in the earth, and we bear it falsely. We're making him look like a liar. And now Yah's telling us, don't bear false witness against your neighbor. It shouldn't even need to be said if we're not taking his image and his reputation in vain. But because he's so detailed, he's also saying, don't bear a false witness against your neighbor. Don't testify, don't speak, don't give an account on someone falsely. Don't trick, don't treat, don't cheat the evidence. And so ayin, to know and to understand a person, which is witness. The word witness is literally ayin resh, which is the eye, or the ayin is to watch, to know, to understand, to perceive. And the resh is the man or a person or a head. So to know and understand a person. You know and understand a person, and then you intentionally lie on that person, you're destroying their time, like the quality of their life. And so I want us to think about it when it comes to the judicial system. And there's so many people, innocent people, who are in jail because of a false witness. There is time, there are years, there are decades that you have destroyed from that person's life because of a false witness. We talked about earlier, Yah said life is precious. There's more than just a physical way to kill people, to destroy or to consume someone. Shin, consume, destroy, separate. You separated time from a person by bearing falsely, by being a false witness. Okay, thoughts, comments, commentary before we move forward.
Yeah, it's just I feel like if a people, or like, I mean, if a person will not love Yahuwah with all, like literally like all of her heart, all of his soul, mind, and body, there's always going to be an error really that is going to happen. It's really, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and sis, I just want to say hallelujah, because again, once again, just to confirm, this is literally on point. Like, you hit so many things. I can't even speak back to what you just said, because that's how much you just nailed it. And I'm so thankful that the Most High is using you right now, because you are literally speaking our thoughts. The deepest thoughts that we speak to the Most High about in private, you are literally revealing these things to us. And I'm just so thankful that He is using you to speak this word.
Hallelujah. I wanted to bring, before we went further, on the same vein of don't bear a false witness, thou shalt not steal. Stealing is not just taking, it's also like deceiving someone's heart, distrusting Yah's provision. I want to talk about this concept of a false witness as well, because when I first read it, I immediately thought about they have taken crafty counsel against your people. Because the concept of crafty counsel against Yah's people is directly connected to being a false witness against your neighbor, against the people around you. And so they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. Again, they want to steal time. They want to steal what Yah has for us. So again, bearing a false witness is directly connected to literally consuming the time of someone. Psalms 101. Whoso privily slander his neighbor, again, false witness, will I cut off. Him that has a high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. Mine eye shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walk in a perfect way, he shall serve me. He that work deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that tells lies shall not tarry in my sight. This is connected to being a false witness. Mm-hmm. Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to be used for edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamoring and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. All right, this is Exodus 20:17. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Covet, to lust after, to desire, to take pleasure in, to delight. Covet is chet mem resh. And the picture of covet is literally the inner chamber of a man is in disorder and chaos. That's what the word covet looks like when you break it down in the Paleo Hebrew. It's literally, if you covet, there is chaos in you. There is disorder in you. That can go back to everything else we were talking about adultery in the hearts of man. Your inner chamber, your inner heart is in disorder. It's in chaos. I'll put right here. When cleaving stops, eyes wander and faithfulness fails. When devotion weakens, temptation gains ground. When cleaving ceases, covetousness and dysfunction begin. So the word cleave, because, you know, Yah, in the beginning of Genesis, he says, and a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. Cleaving is to stay close, to pursue hard, to keep close. There is no room for a wandering eye if you're actually cleaving to your spouse. And that's a commandment that Yah gave the man. Women, we only cleave in return. Make that very clear. I'm gonna say that again. You only cleave in return. We reciprocate, but he has to cleave. The man is supposed to leave his mother and father and join himself, cleave himself to you, and y'all become one. In him cleaving to you, you begin to cleave back. It is out of order for a woman to cleave to a man that has not pursued and cleaved to her. Yah does that by design to protect his daughters. You don't cleave and give devotion to a man unless he is pursuing you hard. And in that pursuit, there's no wiggle room for anybody else. Just like Yah says, man shall cleave to his wife. Then Yah says, man shall cleave to his Elohim. Man shall cleave to his wife. Man shall cleave to his Elohim. Same language. If Yah was okay with the man looking around for another wife, he wouldn't have said cleave to her in the same word verbiage. He wouldn't have said cleave to me. He don't want you looking around at nobody else either. No other gods, no other Elohims, no other nations. But people, humans, don't understand what covenant faithfulness is. The other time Yah says to cleave, nations, other nations, cleave to Israel. That's how you get in the covenant. It's always been about cleaving. Cleaving and covenant faithfulness go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. There's like an order.
There's order.
Yes, there's order, like Yahuwah. Yeah, like I've noticed too, but there's like a pattern too, that, you know, like the elderly, like Moses, there's like elderly, like man, you know, princes, stuff like that, and the woman and the daughter is, you know, like really.
And I really believe, because it's the way that Yah designed us. He designed us to appreciate cleaving, because that's how we're designed. And it's just like, until we understand that the absence of cleaving brings forth covetousness, literally the inner chamber of man is in disorder and chaos when you're coveting, when you're lusting after, when you're desiring something outside of your house. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. So if he would have just stopped there, that means people make excuses. Oh, I can covet the woman that works in that house that's unmarried. I could covet, it's okay for me to, like, as long as I'm not coveting his wife, but like that woman over there that's single, that's just like in their house, that's unmarried, I can covet her. Yah doesn't miss when he's speaking. He's literally, I got to cover all this, because again, I want to think about the nation of Israel. You were either someone's wife, someone's daughter, or someone's maidservant. But either way, you're in someone else's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house.
Yeah. And I think somebody, I just want to add, like,
this makes me really because I'm like, I just know too many sisters that have been very transparent about coming out of situations where they were in an assembly or a camp or a congregation where the headship there was okay with men taking advantage of women and having multiple wives, and these, you know, and the women were thinking like, well, I just have to be subservient, you know, to all the men here and all this. It's like, that is not what submission looks like. You submit to a man who is operating in covenant fidelity and integrity to Yah. Someone being a man does not mean that you automatically submit and surrender to them. That is not like a man, someone having a penis doesn't mean that they're worthy of your submission. And I don't know where that came from, well, I know where it came from. It came from the pits of hell. But like, it's just, it's very, it's causing so much damage in the community. And Yah's instructions are for wholeness and for self-denial. But we have a group of people saying, I don't have to deny myself of my lust because I'm a man. You're lying. You're lying on the Father. And like I said last week, he's not going to hold you guiltless. We got so much stuff to heal from, and we're in the midst of healing, and people are trying to keep festered wounds open because they don't want to allow the alcohol to be poured on their dysfunction. And you're literally contaminating the rest of the community.
Sabra, I have a question. You've noticed, you said, right, do not covet your neighbor's house. It just reminds me because house, like, you know, like also in Old Testament, right, like like, you know, like pinch the house, like, you know, like from that also makes me think also, like, you know, like a lot of no, the nations, other nations or the heathens, is actually, they stole the identity of the Yasharal. They want to steal the identity of the Yasharal because they know that the authority was given to them. And I mean, I know I'm a sojourner, but however, that is one of the reasons too why there's war going on, like even from the beginning, the spiritual, like, you know, good and evil, like, you know, the righteous people of Yahuwah's children, because I think this years, you know, that was still from them, that causes more hatred, that it's been prophesying that, you know, a lot of people's love will get cold. But as long as nobody will stand up and, you know, like take up and, you know, give back the authority to the given to the true, but I'm talking about by bloodline, because I really believe that, you know, by bloodline, if we really just ask, you know, I mean, of course we would know that, you know, they're scattered all over the world, I mean, you know, as we know. And it's just like, you know, they're still trying to erase like the identity of the Israel. And I think, look, that's what's happening right now in the US, like all these things, like in the media. And it's just really sickening, and it's really sad because as I just look back at it, I mean, like, you know, observe, it's just, you know, to try to erase again, like, you know, like, it's just, but yeah, I don't want to get, you know, but it's just like, it just reminds me about the coveting of a house, like, you know, they want to be an Israel, but they don't know what's the curse that was been, you know, like your ancestors, right, that's going on. And it's just really sad to see these things that, you know, I mean, if people could just really, you know, like be humbling, like that Canaanite woman that who said that, you know, to Yahushua, that just like a dog that will eat crumbles in the table, you know, that if person can, if I mean, if a person can just have that kind of humility, I feel like this is not going to happen, like, you know, like yeah, it's just
it's definitely happening. It's remnant. It's, again, us understanding what the word remnant actually means and really like coming to terms with that, because, you know, sometimes I think remnant, I mean, I thought I knew what remnant was until the longer I started walking with Yah, especially this year. I'm just like, oh no, remnant is a lot smaller than what I thought it was. Like, because it's not just about knowing, like we keep saying, it's not just about, like I said last week, not just about having these instructions, it's about his spirit as well. And it's like, not everybody's operating and wanting to live in his perfect will. We have so many people contending to live in a distorted, still very unhealthy, unhealed version of what they believe Yah is and how Yah wants to operate. And it's just like, for some of us who are like, you know, doing the work and really seeing that like Yah's merciful, he's faithful, he's like he's holy, he's just, and to see someone say that, well, he's not just like according to XYZ, you just say, well, that's, we must be serving a different Elohim, because I don't recognize like that perception of what you're saying Yah says it's okay for you to do. And how Yah says it's okay for you to treat certain people a certain way. It's just, yeah, man, we're definitely in those times. And like I was saying earlier today, I'm like, so much has gone on these last like 36 to 72 hours. And I'm just grateful to be set apart. I'm just grateful to not be I'm so grateful that Yah has detached me from Babylonian American Christian systems, rhetoric, thought processes, because it keeps me safe from so much emotional turmoil. I wanted to read Psalms 119. Actually, I love this whole chapter, but 36. Incline my heart into your testimonies and not into covetousness. Because again, his testimonies are a witness of his holiness. I mean, so if we incline our heart, again, incline your heart to his testimonies and not to covetousness. If your heart is inclined to covetousness, it's just a breeding ground for destruction. And so I wanted to put this on here. Might be saying his brother's name wrong, but it's Achan is back. So in Joshua chapter 7, we see a picture of how covetousness brings destruction. And I've been saying that Yah's faithfulness, his Torah faithfulness protects the community. It protects the vulnerable. It protects those who don't have the power to protect themselves. Because if we live in a righteous nation, everyone is protected. Everyone should be safe. When we're, like we said last week, when Israel, Torah, the society that Yah had spoken to Israel fresh out of Egypt, was bound by the nature of the people, but Yah was aiming to change our nature. Or he has changed, like for now, Yah is changing our nature, but we have some people who are resisting the changing of their nature, which is why we get damnable doctrines like, oh, men can't commit adultery, but adultery is only for women. Yeah. You're refusing to be changed in your nature. Yah's changing the nature so we can be safe for each other. So we don't breed dysfunction anymore, but we have people resisting the spirit. Yeah. And so I want to, it's in Psalm 721, when I saw, or he's saying, this is Achan saying, when I saw the spoils in goodly Babylonish garment, and 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels in weight, I coveted them. I desired them. I lusted after them, and I took them and beheld them, and they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. Do y'all know what happened after that? Does anybody know? I need to give like a synopsis of like what happened. I will give a synopsis. Okay. Yah had told them, you go into this land, you're going to plunder it. Don't take nothing. Don't bring none of those accursed items, those things from another house. Because again, the word house in Hebrew is bet. So bet, the house of Yah. We're in the covenant of Yah. We're in the covenant of Israel. If you're coveting another person's house, another person's covenant, this man was coveting another house, another covenant, another nation. And he took the things from someone else's house, from that wasn't from his house, that wasn't from his people, from his nation, and he brought it into his house. He brought the accursed thing into his house, and it brought destruction, not just for him, but for people around him. The whole house got swallowed up. Like they had to stop camp. Y'all was like, why are you crying that you lost this fight? You need to check on the people. Someone is operating in error. You see how it's all like sins of adultery are a virus. Sins of covetousness, adultery, covetousness, looking to fulfill your desires that are outside of what Yah has given you in your covenant is destructive. And it doesn't just hurt you and your house, it hurts your entire community. That's what happened in this account in Joshua 7. They had to pause camp. They went to war. Joshua didn't know that someone had took Babylonian goods and put them in their house, trying to be secret about it. They lost a battle. Joshua can't understand why. He's like, yeah, this good. And y'all like, stop all that crying. Your house is out of order. The people out of order. Line them up by tribes. Okay. All the rest of y'all tribes, go sit down. This one tribe, split them up into houses. Everybody had to really sit there and like wait until, and like he could have just, after all that, he was like, okay, I did it. He waited to the last possible second to confess. All right. Psalms 10, verse 2. The wicked in his pride prosecute the poor. I want to look up this word poor because it doesn't mean just poor like don't have money. When I talk about Yah's instructions, are to protect the vulnerable. Oh wait, that's Psalms. Let me go to Psalms chapter 10, verse 2. What does the word poor mean? Poor means humbled, needy, weak, afflicted, lowly. And so this concept of like every time we read poor, we think about like monetary wise. Those who are humble, those who have been afflicted, those who are weak or who need who obviously we constantly need Yah to be our strength. But when we humble ourselves before Yah, people may look at us and think that like, you know, we don't have much or that we have no power. But Yah saying the wicked in his pride persecute those who are humble, who are afflicted, who are lowly. Let them be taken. Who? Let the prideful, who are prosecuting, who are being unjust to those who are humble, afflicted, and lowly. Yah saying, let those people be taken in the devices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasts in his heart's desires. The wicked boasts in his covetousness. And blesses his covetousness. Whoa. You over here trying to justify and bless the fact that you can have a lustful heart. Yah hates that. We have to purge our hearts. Because if not, we will try to bless our sins, our sinful thoughts, our sinful nature. You're trying to bless your sinful nature instead of dying to your fleshly nature to live in his spirit. We're getting to the close. Exodus 20:18. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpets and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And this just really breaks my heart. Like every time I read this, I'm like, dang, y'all removed yourselves? The people saw it. The people saw it. They inspected, they perceived, they considered. They saw the sense of perceiving, inspecting, and considering was not a casual glance. It was a soul penetrating perception of the holiness of Yahuwah breaking into the physical realm. They witnessed not only with their eyes, but with the weight of their inner being, the thundering, the flashes of lightning, the shofar blast, the smoking mountain, all declared Yahuwah is near, his covenant is not to be taken lightly. Covenant is not a light matter. They removed themselves. The word remove is they staggered, they wandered, they moved, they became unstable, they were trembling. Their response revealed the tension of the human heart in the presence of Yahuwah. They removed, or they wandering or trembling and became unstable. The people could not endure the gravity of the moment. They recoiled from the nearness of holiness, stood afar off. They remained and endured at a distance. That's not what Yah wants for us. So instead of cleaving to the Most High Yah, who had just delivered them, they chose to stand afar off. They endured at a distance, placing space between themselves and the covenant vow they had just agreed to. It's like getting married, but you're like, not so sure, but I'm gonna do it anyway. That's a setup for, that's not a setup for success. And we obviously know the history, we know what happens. The people began to separate from the intensity and seriousness of the covenant vow. Hearing the voice and the trumpet and the feeling of the heaviness made the people feel unsafe. Still, this perception was false. It was the fruit of fear. Fear distorted into avoidance rather than reverence. Again, their fear was distorted and it made them become avoidant of Yah's presence instead of reverencing him. Their perception was false. The mountain was not meant to consume them, but to consecrate them. The fire was not for destruction, but for sanctification. But we have a generation of people who don't want to be sanctified. They just want to stand afar off. Be like, yeah, I'm in covenant, but refusing the fire. All right. Exodus 19:20. And they said unto Moses, speak with us and we will hear. But don't let Elohim speak with us lest we die. I'm going to stop there because y'all have been speaking with them this whole time and nobody died. So now all of a sudden, don't let him speak to us no more because we're going to die. But you've been hearing him this whole time and you haven't died. So you know what I'm saying? Like there's a distortion that's literally happening in real time. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for Elohim has come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. And that's a problem with all sin and manipulation and distortion of his word now. You don't actually fear Yah. You don't care to be holy and sanctified because you don't fear him. So you justify certain perversions. Which is why Moses says, fear not. As we see multiple times in scripture, when the angel of Elohim brings a word, the angel's always like, fear not. I'm coming to give you a word. Calm down. You ain't gotta be scared. I'm not here to kill you. You know, but like every time an angel appears, they all like, oh gosh, I'm about to die. And they're just like, chill. I'm not. Don't fear. I swear. You ain't gotta be scared.
Girl, that was me on the oh, wait, I'm laughing so hard when you just said that. That was me on the C-section table with Dominic. You hear me? Oh my
God. So Yah is literally having Moses tell them, don't fear. And obviously all throughout scripture, we hear angels saying, don't fear. I'm coming. I'm giving you a word directly, like, you know, chill. So Moses says, fear not. We see multiple times in scripture, the angel brings a word and he says, fear not. Moses is correcting their false report of Yahuwah's presence, declaring that the covenant people must be proven. Fear not, yet let his fear remain before you. It's not a contradiction, but covenant balance. The wrong kind of fear drives us away from Yah, but the right kind of fear keeps us close in reverence, humility, and obedience. We got too many people who don't fear Yah, so they don't walk in obedience. Fear him, but don't fear him. And it sounds like what? Again, balance. Not so much that you don't want to get close to him, but fear him in the sense of like, okay, I'm close to you. Like I have reverence. I understand the gravity of this moment. And it says Exodus, the people remained at a distance while Moses drew near the thick darkness where Elohim was. And so that word draw near is to approach, to come near to anything or something, but it also means, it doesn't mean to just get close. It means to join. How about cleaving? Everything is about cleaving. Moses drew near where Elohim was. Moses joined himself. Moses reached out. Moses cleaved near to where Yah was. The people said to Moses, you speak with us, but don't let Elohim speak with us, lest we die. Their request reveals a deeper problem. They preferred a mediator that they could control over a covenant Elohim they could not. They feared death from his voice, not realizing that life itself flows from hearing him and drawing close. Moses, by contrast, drew near to the thick darkness where Elohim was. And drawing near is more than a physical approach. It's to join yourself, to enter into communion, to cleave. Moses models what covenant faithfulness looks like. When others step back, the covenant keepers step forward. And so we know that, you know, at this point, Israel's kind of given us, unfortunately, our ancestors have given us a sneak peek in how they're going to continue with this false perception of Yah, because they again continue to have a false report about who Yah was and what Yah was going to do for them throughout the entirety of their time in the wilderness, and even entering into the promised land, where he sent them again, like you said, he sent them to the land and they brought back a false report. They're already giving a false report saying, if Yah speaks with us, we're going to die. But Yah had already spoken with them and they didn't die. He'd been walking with them this whole time. He delivered them. He nurtured them. He fed them. And yet they're still saying, we don't want to get close to him. And we know later on that they are going to quite literally challenge Moses But if they were just talking with Yah face to face, it would have been none of that. And they knew that. And I think deep down, there were parts of their heart where they were saying yes to this vow, this covenant. But when they saw how serious and for real it was, they were like, I don't really know if I'm like really ready to be this committed. Like, you know, like it is different if you're hearing it from like another source, but like he talking to you quite directly. You seeing the smoke, you seeing the fire. This is not a game. This is not casual. This is for your life. This is for all of your life and for your children's life. And he's telling you, keep my commandments, you get X, Y, and Z. And so in the midst of them seeing how for real it is, some of their hearts are probably like, you know, I'm so grateful that we're out of Egypt, but like, I don't know if I want to like actually do the work to really like walk in this covenant. Again, I don't know the thoughts and the hearts of like everybody in the vicinity, but clearly none of them made it to the promised land because of this false perception that they're literally stating here and they continue to stay further down. The trust, what did I say? One of the commandments was directly connected to a lack of trusting his provision. Was that do not steal? Yep, thou shalt not steal. Theft is ultimately a violation of trust. It is taking what Yahuwah has not given and in doing so, distrusting his provision. But yeah, last part. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, tell the Israelites this, you have seen for yourselves that I have spoken with you from heaven. Do not make any Elohims to be alongside of me. Do not make for yourselves Elohims of silver or gods of gold. Again, repeating the first few commandments. He's saying this is how you make an altar to me. You do it from earth and sacrifice your burnt offerings and your fellowship offerings, your sheep and your goats and your cattle. Whenever I cause my name to be honored, I will come to you and bless you. If you make an altar of stone for me, do not build it with cut stones. Again, y'all saying my creation is perfect. Them rocks that I made, they perfect the way they are. I don't need you to put your hand to it. Again, that's like that creating a graven image. Like you think you can do better than what y'all did. I don't need you to cut and make like the things that you saw in Egypt where they had y'all cutting stone and creating it in these. I don't need you to do all that. The rocks that I got, the way that I made them, that's how you're gonna stack them up, and that's all I need. Like that's it. Don't put your hand to nothing. Like you don't need to create anything. So we're seeing this reiteration of like everything he's already said before, but in another like situation. If you make an altar, do not like do it with cut stones, for you will defile it if you use a tool on it. We talked about how you defile his image when you try to create something that represents him. He's literally saying it here, like you putting your tool to something that I created, you're defiling it. Just don't touch it. And do not go up on my altar on steps, or your private parts may be exposed. Decent, be decent, you know. So I just want to end it here. Like the manifestation of Yahuwah's presence was overwhelming. We see that's from their reaction. It was overwhelming for Moses. We don't really get like what he was going through, but again, this is not Moses' first rodeo being in the presence of Yah and seeing like a talking bush or a pillar of fire, like, you know, and see, like, yeah, Moses is a little more adapt to like Yah's presence, but this was another level, you know. But again, it wasn't overwhelming for him because he still decided to draw near. It was designed to inscribe fear, reverence, and awe deep into their soul. Yet even here, his presence was not to terrify without purpose. It was to remind them covenant life is sacred, Yahuwah is holy, and his people must walk in his ways. He's like, I am holy, so you should be holy. Again, where shall I go from their spirit? Like, and where should I flee from thy presence? Now, I don't think my ancestors really understood that, because it's like they thought stepping back, they was gonna have like that they were getting some distance from like Yah's correction, his judgment, and his cleaning. But like, where can you go from his spirit? You took a step back, but he's still there. That whole Psalms of 130 said, if I make my bed in hell, there you are. You can't get away from his spirit, so you might as well draw close. And oh wait. I think I double typed. But yeah, that was it. That's all I got. Comments, commentary, questions. All right. So
That was really good, sis.
hallelujah. Because I was like, I never know how these Bible studies are gonna turn or which way they're gonna go. But the commandments are serious. But like, don't miss, like I don't want us to miss like the perfectness of his word. You know talking about how like, Yahusha brought, clarity, and he brought deeper revelation. But like that revelation was already here because Yahusha is quite literally these words made flesh. So Yahusha is the manifestation of the deeper things that Yah was already saying in here. We're gonna get into some parts, like we kind of talked about a little bit of this stuff already, but we're gonna actually get into some of these commandments where people twist to justify polygamy, and I'm gonna squash it. So yeah, I just want the daughters of Yah to understand that Yah created us for covenant fidelity. Like you are deserving of being cleaved to, because that's how he designed us to, like he designed men to cleave to the woman. So I just, and there's so much favor from a man that gains a wife and cleaves to his wife. So yeah, I just want us to be healed and whole in the sense that we recognize that for ourselves, and we can operate in that love for ourselves and be a teaching point for other sisters who may be coming out of situations to where they haven't dealt with like low self-esteem or hurt or trauma, and they meet people who tell them that they're, again, not worthy, or God doesn't see them worthy of covenant faithfulness and fidelity. And that is so, like, that is such a disservice. That is such a that is a false witness to who Yah is. And he cares for the lowly and the meek and the poor. So yeah, that being said, I'm going to cut the camera and then we can have further discussion and close out in prayer.